back again, Laboratory Tuesdays, where we create something new in your life and business. My name is Tory. I'm a holistic nutrition specialist, and today we're talking about stress. So I don't know if you know this, but for every Laboratory Tuesday, I used to plan out the content, and then I would get an idea like 7 minutes before it's time to go live, and I would have to do that. Well, today I didn't get my good idea, and so I sat in my little meditation corner. And anybody's listening, can you just like give me a thumbs up if the sound is actually working? Because that's been an issue. So I didn't have my idea yet. And so I went in my meditation corner like 10 minutes ago, and I just said, okay, what am I supposed to talk about this week? I can pull something up from an old blog, but I like it to be really authentic. So I sat for a minute, and all I could hear were all of the things that I should be stressed out about today. And it was like, almost like I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, and my heart was beating this much out of my chest. And I was like, aha, okay, there it is. There's the answer. Today we're gonna talk about stress. And so first, why do we even care? I mean, you've heard from a biology standpoint that stress is like acid rain on the body. It literally deteriorates your insides. And sometimes there's a disconnect in that because you're like, okay, well, I can't see my insides. That doesn't really resonate with me. But what can resonate with you is that it makes you feel like crap, right? It impedes digestion. So that means that every time you eat, your food kind of just sits in your stomach and you feel bloated and you feel gassy, or you just completely lose your appetite. Also, it limits your breath. Your breath follows your physiology and vice versa. So you have 37 plus trillion cells that rely on oxygen to survive. And when you're stressed out, you really limit your breathing to only the top 1/4 of your lungs, meaning you are starving all of those cells. And that's how you start to get headaches, and that's why you start to get shaky. And that's why you start to feel like you're living next to your body instead of in the flow and into your body. But the most detrimental thing that comes along with stress is that it disconnects you from your internal guidance system. And I've spoken a lot about this, about being in alignment, about being in flow. And we've all felt what flow feels like. It's when you're joyful and you're creative and everything feels manageable. It feels like there's just a lot of space and in time. It feels abundant. It feels rich. You don't feel overwhelmed, but you don't feel bored. It's like that sweet spot. And when we're stressed out, we have no access to that, right? Like I was talking about, usually before my Laboratory Tuesdays, I'm in the flow and I'm really excited and I just get a creative idea and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm gonna talk about. But today, because I was overwhelmed with stress, I couldn't access that. So what do? Well, as you know, I talk about 2 ways to make sure that we align and we get into our flow every day. And we have preventative medicine, and then we have our sick visits, right? So preventatively, you know the answer. You got to start the day on your own terms. Before you even leave the house, before you even have things to be stressed out about, you have to get your boulder of positive momentum rolling. So it's rolling so strong that by the time you start interacting with people and with things to be stressed out about, your boulder is rolling really powerfully, and you're just going to roll right over it without issues. And you also know the answer as to what that could look like. That could mean that you start your morning with exercise, with meditation, with prayer, with a nourishing meal where you sit down and it's just you and your meal. It could be nourishing conversation with a loved one. Whatever it is, you know what works for you. But the important piece is to do that before you leave the house, so you already have this positive energy building, this positive momentum. So that's our preventative care. Our sick visit care, you also know the answers to these, but it's all about implementing them. And I know that you've been stressed before and you feel that disconnect. You kind of forget that you have tools in your back pocket that you can use to no longer feel stressed. You start to feel like you're the victim throughout the day with the schedule, and you forget that you actually have the choice to choose. So I first advocate for writing out a Post-it note and posting it on your wall, on your desk, that just says, I choose. And that's really powerful for me. I have them right here in front of my laptop, and it just says, I choose. And that reminds me that anytime I have a negative feeling, I feel stressed out, I feel like I'm being stretched too thin, I can go, oh yeah, I choose. I can cancel. I can reschedule, or I can change my mindset and I can just commit to getting back into the flow so all of this feels manageable and we have that abundance, that space, that energy that we talked about. Okay, so for our sick visits, for some things that you can do throughout the day that remind you that you choose. 1, breathe. Really simple, but like we said, breath follows your physiology and vice versa. So if I were to have you start breathing rapidly right now, you would hyperventilate, because that's what the word means, hyperventilate. You're hyperventilating. You would eventually hyperventilate. Your physiology would follow that breath. So use that inversely. Anytime you're hyperventilating a bit, you can take slow, deep breaths, and your body is going to go, oh, we're calm. And it's going to come around and it's going to start to believe that you're calm. 2, drink water. Easy enough. Dehydration is a chronic problem, and we can easily combat it by just committing to drinking 2 liters of water a day. Also, I like my routine of drinking water because every time I go to reach for my bottle, it's kind of like this reset where I go, I'm taking care of myself, I'm nourishing myself, I'm back to the present. And if I have to drink 2 liters of water a day, I have to check in all the time, right, to make sure that I'm nourishing myself. 3, eat nourishing foods. Sugar and processed foods mimic anxiety. They cause a disconnect between your body and your internal guidance system. Sometimes they're like a drug. So you can think of, you wouldn't drink alcohol all day and then assume that you could function optimally, right? Well, some additives in our food create that same disconnect as alcohol. They drug your body. It might feel a little bit differently, but they're still drugging you. So eat nourishing foods that promote connection with that internal guidance system instead of allowing for a disconnect. 4, stretch, walk, move numerous times throughout the day. I like to just stand up and do a couple jump squats because it gets the blood rushing through my body and kind of allows me to settle back into my being. Go for a walk, go outside. If none of that is available to you, maybe eat your lunch near the window. Remind yourself that there is an outside. Whatever you need to do, take a lap around the building every 30 minutes. Just remember to continually check in and kind of get the blood flowing through your body so all of your organs and your parts remember that they exist. 5, find awareness around what you're actually feeling, because there's an internal dialogue that you're having every time you're stressed out, and most likely it's one that you have often. So I know for myself that every time I'm stressed out, I can always trace it back to, sorry, I got a pop-up. I can always trace it back to this idea that I'm stretched too thin. I guess that's a big fear of mine, that I'm stretched too thin. Every time I'm stressed out, I can always trace it back to that. And so what my internal dialogue is Tory, you're an introvert, and having too many things in the day exhausts you and you don't like it. Once I've identified that, I can change that dialogue. I can change it to something more empowering. Instead of all day saying, Tory, you're an introvert and this is exhausting, which isn't serving me, it's stressing me out, I can instead change to the opposite and say, Tory, you are a badass leader and you're gonna fucking rock the day, right? So finding awareness around what is actually stressing you out will allow you to identify it, so then you can change the story. And so just like you'd use a food journal, you write down what you ate and when, you can have a stress journal and you can write down, okay, I'm feeling really stressed out, what is at the root of this? And you write it down, and I guarantee you'll find some patterns, and with that awareness, you can make empowered choice. And then lastly, anytime you're stressed out, you can always go more general. You can always pull the lens back. So many times we're stressed out because we are seeing the situation this close. Anytime we pull it back, we can take a deep breath and we go, okay, I got this. So for instance, if I use my example of today, stressed out that today is really busy, I can always pull the lens back and I can go, oh my gosh, but how lucky am I to be here, to be working with these people, to be contributing positively to the world. Oh my God, how lucky am I to have an office in my home? How lucky am I to even have a home? How lucky am I to live in Indianapolis, in this amazing city? We can always pull the lens back to really find true perspective. So that is it for today's Laboratory Tuesday. If you have any ideas for what you'd like me to speak about next Tuesday, please leave them in the message below. I read everything. I will check it out, and have a wonderful stress-free Tuesday.